Alright, let's take a look at number 17. Now keep in mind that 17 is one that we haven't done yet, but it is one we're going to be doing soon, so I am going to include it in this video. This particular question says many bacteria are very small, and one might be as small as 0.000000213 of a meter in length. How is this length expressed in scientific notation? Well, in scientific notation, the way this works is whenever you move your decimal to the right, it gives you a negative exponent. Whenever you move your decimal to the left to make a change, it gives you a positive exponent. And you only want one digit of numerical value other than 0 in front of the decimal. Now I just wanted to write that so that you would make sure that you remember that. So we only want one digit of numerical value other than 0 in front of the decimal when we're done. So let's take a look at how we're going to do this. So I think the easiest way to do it is, I know that I want my 2 to be right in front of the decimal. So my decimal, I want it to be right there. And then I go, well, I'm going to move my decimal to get there. I got to move my decimal to the right or to the left. And I think it's pretty obvious. We have to move to the right. That tells me my exponent is going to be negative. So I can already look at these answer choices, and anything that doesn't have a negative exponent on 10 is going to be crossed out. So D, you can go ahead and cancel it out. So now it's going to be A, B, or C. So let's see how many times we're going to move it to the left. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we moved 6 times right. That means my power is going to be 10 to the negative 6 power. And then I'm going to have that multiplied to 2.13. And that's all we do to change it to scientific notation. So we just need to look and see, well, which one matches this? Well, this one, it says 21.3, right? That's got 2 digits in front of the decimal. That breaks the rule of having only one digit in front of the decimal. That's not 0. Both of these have 2.13, but notice this one says to the power of negative 7. And that would be wrong because we only moved the decimal 6 places over. So C is incorrect, and B is the correct answer. On question number 18, it says the coordinate grid shows similar right triangles ABC and AED. Which statement is true based on the triangles above? So let's take a look at our triangles. Now notice that when we're looking at our triangles, in this question, it's going to ask us about a true statement, but if you notice in the answers, they all say slope. So we're going to be asked about the slope, and they all say AC. So it's talking about line segment AC. In other words, if I highlight it, AC is going to be this line right here. Now one thing to keep in mind is that whenever you have similar right triangles and they're inside of one another, for instance, this is one and this is another, there's a bigger one that it's inside of, the hypotenuse on each one of those triangles are going to have the same slope because it's the same line. So just keep that in mind. So I think there's a couple things that we can do real quick right off the bat to eliminate some answer choices. First of all, we can look at this line right here, the hypotenuse, and go, well, from left to right, is it going uphill or is it going downhill from left to right? And this one is obviously going uphill from left to right, so the slope is positive. So we can eliminate any one of these answers that doesn't have a positive slope. So for instance, F, it says negative 1/2, so we can eliminate F. And J says negative 2, so we can eliminate J. Now we got a 50-50 shot of getting it right. It's either J or H. So at this point, we need to go ahead and determine what the slope is. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to count our rise over run. And when you're looking at this, I would go from this point D to A, because remember, AD is going to have the same slope as AC. So you could count all the way up and over, but I'm just going to count up right here and over. And to any 2 points on the line would be sufficient. So if I draw over here and get that lined up, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have a rise of 3 and a run of 6. And if I go ahead and simplify that, that's going to give me 1/2. And since it is positive, my best answer will be G, which is positive 1/2. G is the correct answer. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and start on number 21. And on number 21, it says, which of these sets of ordered pairs shows a functional relationship? And when you see that functional relationship, that's just another way of saying that we're trying to find the one that is a function. And remember, when we're looking at functions, we want to make sure that there are no repeating x values. So keep in mind that the first number is your x and the second one is your y. So the easiest way to do this is to just underline all the x values and make sure none of them repeat. For example, there's 7, 0, 8, and 8. Notice we have 8 repeat for x twice. So that tells us that a is not a function. On the next one, we have 3 and 3. And as soon as we see more than one x value repeat, like for instance these 3's repeated, then we know that that one is not a function. The next is 4, 5, 4. Well, if you look, we have 4 repeating for our x value. So that's not a function. This one we have negative 12, positive 1, positive 12, and positive 24. Here we have no repeating x values. Why we do have a 12 in two different places, this is a different number. It would take a different place on the number line because it is negative 12, and that's positive 12. So since none of our x values repeat in D, D is a function. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at number 22. It says the coordinates grid shows a polygon. The figure is dilated according to the rule with the origin as the center of dilation. And it gives us this rule. It says x and y is going to change by 3 seconds times x and 3 seconds times y. So think about this. Remember, if the number is greater than 1, our image is going to enlarge and grow bigger. If it was less than 1, it would shrink. So since this is greater than 1, we are going to increase. And we can use this rule to go ahead and enlarge this figure. Right here it says, what will be the coordinates of point E after dilation? So this even makes it easier, because all we're going to do is change the effect and dilate E. We're not going to dilate the rest of the points here. And then we can see which one of these match up with those values. So let me show you what we're going to do. Let's rewrite our rule. But instead of, we have x and y, right? And then what we have is, we have 3 over 2 times x and 3 over 2 times y. So what I want to go ahead and do now, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find my ordered pair for E. And so we just start at origin, and we got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's at 3, 4 on the coordinate plane. So what we're going to do is go ahead and plug that in for our x and y. It's 3, 4. So I'm going to have 3 over 2 times my x value of 3. That's my x value from right here. And then I'm going to have 3 over 2 times my y value of 4. And there's my y. And now we just got to work this out. So if you're having trouble multiplying fractions in your mind, you're welcome to use the calculator. And I can do an example real quick with the calculator. And we're going to go ahead and plug these numbers in and see what we come up with. Alright, so let's go over to calculate, and we're going to plug these in. And so what I would do is go ahead and use my fraction bar. So fraction bar, we have 3 over 2, and that's times 3. That's going to be our first one. And it gives us 9 over 2. And then we're going to have, once again, 3 over 2 times 4. And that's going to give me 6. So I should have 9 over 2 and 6. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. This right here equals 9 over 2. And my y value is going to be equal to 6. So which answer looks like that? If you go over here, 9 over 2 and 6, the answer is F. Alright, let's take a look at number 23. It says Jacob earns $55, we're going to box it, in 2 hours, or $130 in 5 hours. Which equation best represents this relation? So, I noticed that I'd say a decent amount of the class got this question wrong. I was a little surprised. But let's look back over it and see which one makes sense. So I want you to think about, remember we talked about independent and dependent variables, right? And we say that the dependent is what we're trying to measure. It's the one that we're going to measure in the end. And the independent is the one that we're going to change in order to achieve that measurement. So when looking at this, we're looking at cost. So that's my y. And so my time, which is going to change, because if the time changes, then my cost changes. So this is going to be my independent is my time. That's my x. This is my y, and this is my x. The reason that's important is because you can just plug in this value for x and see does it give you that as y. And I'll give you an example. On A, we have y is equal to 20, and I'm going to use this 2 right here, times 2 plus 10. So 2 times 20 is 40 plus 10 gives me 50. So that would mean that my y is equal to 50 when my x is 2. Notice that it's close. We got 55, but that's not the same as 50. So A is not going to be a correct answer. So let's try plugging this in for the next one. If I plug in 2 for x here, then I have y is equal to 25 times 2 plus 5. So if I multiply that out, that's 50 plus 5, and that means y is going to be equal to 55. So if you notice, that works for this one. So this one's good. Let's try the next one. If I plug a 5 in place of x, then I have 5 times 25, and that'll be 125, plus another 5 would be 130. So in case you need to see that, let's rewrite that. I should have done that in the first place. We have 25 times 5 plus 5, and 5 times 25, and you can check this with your calculator if you need to. That's 125. If I bring down my 5, that's going to give me 130. So y is equal to 130. Notice that's good and that's good. Those are the two values that we needed for y. So B is the correct answer. Alright, and number 24, it says what missing value of x will make the mapping a function? Remember, what we're trying to do when we have a function is we do not want any repeating x values. So we have a 4, a 2, a 6, and a 3. And so we don't want to have any repeating x values. So those numbers cannot be any options. So let's take a look at the options we have and we can mark those off. We already have a 3, so we can't have a 3. We already have a 2, it says it's 0, and so we can't have a 2. And let's see, we already have a 4, it's 2, so we can't have a 4. And that leaves 5. So 5 is the only number we could place in there where it would still remain a function. Because remember, a function doesn't have any repeating x values. So J is the correct answer.